so much. Thank you for being here, for coming out tonight. I'm going to put this down. I'm normally a walker, but I don't want to block the screen. So I got here yesterday, and Dave took me to dinner, and then I got a chance to connect with some of my absolute favorite people in the world. Everyone from Cherish and Lindsay to Ed to Nairi to Brian. And I look at the impact that we have. The impact that we have on each other, the impact that we have on our clients' lives, and it makes it very difficult when you come to the realization that we are all incredibly unnecessary. And I sadly found this out about 4 years ago. Everything was going so well. The business was going well, the company was doing well. I was booked for 19 different clients, I was featured in every magazine, I was speaking across the world, and then I looked at my books and I realized that I had 2 weddings booked for the next year. Literally, just 2. And I was like, okay, so nobody needs a room filled with flowers. Nobody needs a wedding cake that floats on the water throughout the reception. They certainly don't need a room that's transformed with drape and florals. They don't need me to build them a crazy rich Asian's wedding, or a garden, or anything else that's hanging. Nobody needs this. And whether you are a planner, an event designer, a photographer, the reality is that in order to get married, you just need a wedding license. That's it. The rest of this is unnecessary. And so how do we encourage our ideal clients to invest in something that is completely and totally irrational? I mean, we as an industry ask people to give us so much time, so much energy, so much money. So much money. And I recently had somebody say to me, what's the ROI on this? And I was like, happiness. And she was like, you're gonna need to do better than that. And so the way that we sell these things, the way that we get people to invite us into their lives is we tell them a story. Because the reality of the situation is storytelling has been around since the beginning of time. You can emotionally connect to a story. You can teach, you can learn, you can share. A story is going to be passed down from generation to generation. You'll be able to connect with the emotion of a story and recall it much easier than you'll be able to recall facts, figures, or any other information. Storytelling has been around since the beginning of time. It's the tie that binds us, and it kind of connects one generation to the next. And our art as an industry is that we capture moments and we create memories. And those memories, if we do it well, if we do it right, those are the memories that last generation to generation. And so in those ways, we are all a heritage brand. And when you're in a saturated market, one like LA, one that is kind of quickly becoming Las Vegas, how is it that you're able to stand out from everybody else in your market? How do you get people to connect with you and not see you as one choice, but as the only choice, the only person who could possibly create this experience for them? And so I was asked to break down the anatomy of a story. And so we're going to talk about knowing what it is that you are selling, being specific in who it is for. We're going to talk about crafting a better story, making a very outrageous promise, creating powerful statements, and then telling it properly, because a story doesn't matter if you don't tell it. So the first thing that we need to talk about is, what is it that you're selling? And I've asked a bunch of people, some of you that I hadn't gotten a chance to meet until tonight, like, so what is it that you do? And I got a lot of like very kind of canned answers, like, I'm a photographer, I'm a florist, I'm a designer, I'm a venue. And the reality is, people don't buy things. People buy feelings. And when you separate out the stuff from how it is that we feel about the stuff, you immediately break out from the rest of the pack. When you sell the thing is something that can be discounted, it can be undersold, it can be knocked off by somebody else. But when you look at the stuff and how it makes someone feel, when you create that feeling, That's something that is so totally specific and very personal to you and to the client. It's an intimate relationship. Nobody can discount that. Nobody else can say, you're going to feel the same way with me, because it's utterly impossible. It's like swapping husbands. Some of us are on our second marriages, not everybody, but some of us are. I'll sit with you later. But you have to separate the thing from the way that the thing makes you feel. And then you need to figure out a way to be incredibly specific with regard to who it is that you're selling to. When I hit my dip, when I went from 19 to 2, it was because there was this great amount of brand confusion. I didn't know who I was. Was I selling to people who had a really pretty floral arch spray? Or was I handcrafting a mandap out of foam and knocking it down afterwards? Was I floating some very pretty flowers in the middle of a very empty table? Or was I building out really large, elaborate pieces that were going to have an impact? So if you came to my website and you saw this, and you saw this, these are two totally different stories that you would tell to two totally different clients. And that confused not just the industry, but my potential client base. Because somebody who's attracted to this is gonna see this and say, she's not for me. And yet if they see this and they look at the other picture, they're gonna think she's not that good, she just got lucky. And so it really took some time for me to say, okay, that's me, stalking them. But I was hired by the groom to help do the proposal. And so I wanted to really get a sense of who they were, and Dennis Kwan took that photo of me kind of taking pictures of them over my shoulder. But you need to understand who exactly your client is. What do they do for a living? What do they do for fun? When are they available? Because most of my clients have real jobs. And so a 9 to 5 office hour, for me, doesn't work for them. Where are they living, eating, traveling? What are they doing? And most importantly, when all of those things come together, how is it that they want to be made to feel on their wedding day? When you identify the feeling, you can craft a better story, one that actually resonates with your client's worldview. Because ultimately, that's what they're purchasing. People make such quick decisions about who we are as an industry, who we are as professionals, who we are as planners, salesmen, florists, based on immediately what they see. And once you make a decision, once you have a snap judgment, everything about the human condition is there to reinforce that one decision, to remind you that yes, you were right to feel this way about someone. So when you're going out and you're trying to identify who your clients are and how they will connect with you in a sea of sameness, the trick is to position yourself as somebody that makes sense in their life. And so when you're going into storytelling, the first thing that you want to talk about is, who's the hero of this story? Who is this for? When I look at a lot of marketing, we position ourselves as the hero, when the reality is that the hero of the story is the client. They're who everything has to revolve around. What is the problem that this person has? When you're talking about a story arc, you have a character. The character encounters a problem. They have a need, they have a want, they have a fear. And so you take them through the process by saying, okay, what is it that they need to do in order to overcome this fear? In our industry, the language is typically you have a couple that's getting married. They need to plan a wedding. The fear is that they're going to make a mistake. They're going to choose the wrong vendor, they're going to choose the wrong color, they're not going to set up the timeline correctly. And so they need to hire someone, they need to hire a professional and an expert who's actually going to take them through that. They're going to encounter other obstacles, and so then at that point, you need to introduce yourself as their guide, the person who is going to fix this for them, who's going to shepherd them through the issue, so that throughout the journey, when you're able to help them specifically, together you can celebrate success. I'll leave that. And you guys don't have, if anyone wants this, it's yours. So DM me, send me a note on a pigeon, I will send it to you. But when you frame it like this, when you go through the very kind of who, what, when, where, why, how, and you look at creating a client-driven narrative, your client is the main character, that has a problem, you're the solution and you have a plan, and then you invite them into your business to engage with you in a meaningful way because they want to feel something. Most of the time what I find is that people don't want to look stupid, they don't want to make a mistake, they don't want people to talk about them. Your guests are going to talk about you anyway. I tell them, everybody's judging you, so just do what you want. And if you don't want to do what you want, then just do what I want. But because in the end, it's my job to create those feelings. That's what I do. You walk into a room and everything in that space bends to my will. I decide how you get to feel. I decide when you get to feel that. And if I bend the universe to my will correctly, I can take you on a journey of emotions without having to tell you that I'm doing that. So when you craft a baseline story like this, the next thing you can go in and do is make a truly outrageous promise that only you can fulfill. Because that's what separates you in the market. I don't do what Ed does. And I don't do what Nairi does. I certainly don't do what Cherish and Lindsay do. There are all of us that have these very, very different skill sets. And so you need to be able to say something that can only be true for you. Because audacity is what gets the attention. Nobody cares about the middle. Nobody notices it. And I'm not talking about the middle of the market. I'm talking about when we as professionals, we as business owners, try to play it safe. When we talk about the pretty. Well, I do pretty weddings. If you're not doing pretty weddings, you're in the wrong building. Or I love taking pictures because, it's so great to document somebody's day. That doesn't mean anything. If it can be true for 12 other people, then it's not outrageous enough. You need to create the feeling that this client's issue is massively terrifying, and that you are the only person who cares about it enough and who cares about it properly so that you can take them through it. Because if not, you're interchangeable. You and your clients have to care about the same thing. You have to have the same motivating factor. And the way that you go ahead and that you communicate these things is by statement making. So there are 4 main statements that you should try to craft on behalf of your business that are going to teach people things. You want to have a customer-focused statement, something that talks about what it is that you provide to your clients. You want to have a strategy statement that talks about how you do it, a solution statement for problems, and a critical assumption. So my customer-focused statement is that I exist to create extraordinary experiences for extraordinary people. That is my only reason for being a person on the planet. I want to take people who have truly amazing lives, and I want to give them one day where it's better than anything else that they've experienced throughout the rest of their extraordinary life. My strategy statement is that I do this by bending the universe to my client's will, creating the perfect environment for people who value atmosphere and aesthetics. The solution is that rather than looking for something perfect in an imperfect world, I create the world that you, my client, wish you lived in, and I import your desires onto a blank canvas. And the critical assumption for me is that the grander the moment, the bigger the atmosphere, the better the memory. And so if you as a client don't care about this, then you're in the wrong place. And we shouldn't be having the conversation. And so these 4 statements I'm able to put out into the world, and if a client looks at it and says, I have an extraordinary life, I want an extraordinary moment, I want somebody who's gonna bend the world to my will and who's gonna be totally over the top and opulent, if they're like, it's not really necessary, they're never gonna call me, which is perfect because I don't want to talk to them. Because we have nothing to say to each other. We don't speak the same language. If you don't care about how a space looks and feels, I will always fail in my job. I will never be able to tell your story because our love language is different. If you care more about entertainment and bands and celebrity appearances and production value, that's not me. And so there are 100 people that I can send you to that are going to embrace that and love it and take it to a different place that I won't. This is what I care about. And so this is what I've built my story around, and I do it by developing a lexicon and developing a set of words that I use. I love dazzling. I love dazzling diamonds, dazzling chandeliers. I love anything that sparkles. I think that it's extraordinary that we're able to do this with really lush, beautiful florals. I like things that are opulent, and I want them to be timely, but still timeless. And I want them always to have a really luxurious, high-end feel. These words, when I weave them in and out of all of my correspondence, everything you see on my website, all of the captions in my Instagram, and the talks when I'm with my clients, when I'm with the partners that we bring together to build these things out. By repeating them over and over again, I'm consistently reinforcing to my clients that they've made the right decision, that I speak their language, and that I'm looking to create the world that they want to live in. So you get to this point where I'm saying it's telling your client's story, it's clients, but before we can be trusted to tell the stories of others, we have to understand how to tell our own story in a way that's really and truly meaningful. So my kid is 10 and he tells me that this is the origin story. So he tells me that it's the origin story of Batman or Spider-Man or this and that. It's how did you come to exist in this place? And your story is supremely powerful as a closing tool, because if it's storytelling for sales, how do you close someone? If you've done everything right, you've gotten their attention, you've brought them into the door, and now you're sitting there, and now is the dirty transaction part, where you need to make sure that you close them and you take their money. Your own story is how you get to do that. But you have to remember that this is not about you. And so you need to avoid an ego-driven narrative, because everything always has to go back to the hero. Everything has to go back to the person that you're serving. And so when you're trying to figure out how and when to use your origin story, I typically like to do it at the end, where I've collected all of the information. My clients have told me a lot about themselves. They've given me the words that I'm going to mirror back to them. We've talked about all of the things. And then I go into, I feel very much like your planner. I feel like the person who is meant to do this, because that's the reason that I exist. And I go into who I was before I was me. Like, at a different time in my life, who was I? Because you have to start out as a different person. And you go beyond the, I got into weddings because they're pretty, and you need to find the place within your own life where you can be truly vulnerable about what drew you to this industry and what it was that brought you to this place. You need to explain to them how the work that you've done and the clients that have been generous enough to invite you into their lives, how that's changed you, what you've done since to give back, to grow, to further educate yourself. And then you take yourself up to the pinnacle of where you are now and how all of that journey is going to impact your client. And at the end of the day, the whole point of this is to explain to them, why are you iconic? And I don't care if you are a day of planner who is literally investing 8 hours on a Saturday, if you are the absolute pinnacle of luxury and there's no one who does a better or more expensive job than you, or if you are doing average weddings, if you're doing the industry standard of weddings, there is something about you that will make you the best person in that market at that date, at that time, for that client. And that's what you need to be able to share with them. And everyone in here, the thing I hear most is, I don't have a great story. Well, my friends, I don't have a great story. Like, my own personal story, my origin, is not from a pretty place. I didn't come from an experience that was beautiful and pristine. I was in a place in the early years of my life where I was introduced to the very ugly underbelly of the world at a very young age, and I saw things and I experienced things that were difficult, that made me feel out of control. And I was talking to my father one day. My cousin was hosting her Sweet 16. Anyone remember Sweet 16? Yes? All right. Her father had been unexpectedly killed. And we were going into the city for this party. I was 13 years old. And my parents are talking and they're saying, you know, it's really important that this night is perfect. Like, it has to be perfect. We have the gift, we have this. And I said, I can't believe that we're doing this. That he died 6 weeks ago and that we're in this car going to this party. And my dad looked at me through the rearview mirror and he said, bad things are going to happen. And when they do, you need something to look forward to, because this party is the last gift her dad's ever gonna give her, and it's what's gotten her out of bed for the last 6 weeks. And years from now, she needs to have this moment to look back on. There needs to be joy. And that right there, just immediately in my head said, life is meant to be celebrated. You need to have things to look forward to and to look back on. And like any self-centered 13-year-old, I started planning my own. Because I wanted that. I wanted that feeling. I wanted something to look forward to, and I wanted something to look back on. I wanted a moment where the world wasn't an ugly place, where it wasn't difficult, and it wasn't hard, where everything could just be beautiful, where you could look at a room and say, everyone here is here for me, and they're mine. And I have an attachment to every single person who's sitting here. That matters. And in the course of planning, somebody looked at my book and said, you should be a wedding planner. And so that became my why. That became the thing that motivated me. If I didn't have a beautiful story, if I didn't have a perfect existence, then karmically, I can put that out into the world. I can use that to give back and to balance out the thing that I didn't have. And so in so many ways, bending the universe to my will gives me a sense of control that I didn't have. Creating something beautiful offsets the ugly. And that, my friend, is my origin story. And that is what I tell people at the end of our consultation. And then I go in to explain to them, that is why I chose to go to UNLV, because it was the greatest hospitality school in the country when I was going in the 90s. That is why I spent 15 years in hotels and nightlife, in restaurants, understanding food, beverage, service, atmosphere. That's why I started my own company, because I couldn't be contained anymore in the arch of somebody else's framework. I needed to be free because I need to create this for you, because you deserve a perfect moment. And that's my close. And so when you spend some time and you're not afraid to be vulnerable, it's hard to tell that story. It never gets easier. But when you're at a place where you feel like you don't need to be performing for your clients, when you can have an actual conversation where it's not about the transaction, it's not about the money, it's not about the imbalance of power of, oh God, I hope you pick me. But we're choosing each other because that story connects us on an emotional level. When you do that, how are you going to argue against that? How is any other wedding planner or any other event designer in the world going to discount the feeling that I give that couple in that moment? It's absolutely impossible. They may not like that feeling, in which case it's better that we don't work together. But if they do, if they dig it, if they dig me, now we're in it together, now we're gonna play, and now we have a story, and we have a shared kind of emotional investment in each other, and that's the basis of trust. That's what we build on. That's what lets me do the weird stuff that I get to do. So when we tell these stories, there are 3 ways that you are going to go out into the world and you're gonna share them. There's reading, listening, and watching. So a lot of people think that blogging is dead. Blogging is not dead. You do not own your social media. You don't own Instagram, Facebook, you don't own the backlinks. Remember when Style Me Pretty for 5 minutes was going away? And like, people were melting? Then what about my backlinks? You don't own them. You need to create your own content. You need to produce it regularly, and you need to put it out into the world in a way that people can digest. So, pro tips, try to do a blog a week. Vary the topics that you are discussing, but always take them back to providing value to your readers and allow other people to tell your story. So I picked this mix because we had wedding editorialists at a bridal show, and I wanted people to understand that, like, this is where we are. You can come see the product. We're going to have discounts. Brian Leahy is my man who gave me a great shout out the other day on social. Thanks, Dan. We talk about bridesmaids and groomsmen gifts. Push and pull on a wedding day. How you deal with crisis, which we all want to pretend it's perfect, but it's never perfect. And so going behind the scenes and saying, this was a hot mess, and let's talk about how we got to a successful place. And then I let other people tell my story by going behind the scenes at a bridal expo and sharing the video, by sharing an extraordinary thank you note that I had received from the father of a bride. And so every week, if you are truly passionate about this industry, if you love what you do it for, and who you do it with, you can come up with one thing a week to say. If you need a list, I have a list of 365 topics. I will give you a topic a day for the rest of the year. DM me, email me, I will send it to you. It is on a content calendar. You should always be able to come up with something to say. And as you start to write and as you start to share, you're going to find that you have a voice in this industry. Every single one of us has had a unique experience on this planet. And when you have a voice, you have a responsibility to use it. Podcasting is enormous right now. I can't tell you the number of people that say to me, I found you on your podcast. I'm like, really? Because I just thought that I was talking for me. But it's incredible that people are spending their time. There's no radio anymore. I mean, nobody's listening to 94 something. Is there still a 94? I don't know. What are the kids listening to? They're not. They're listening to podcasts. So if you are interested in setting up a podcast, please go and look at Anchor. This is like the beginner baby step. It's a free app you can download. You can tape it right on your phone, and it will immediately push out and publish across all of them. Apple, Spotify, everywhere. And this will get you used to communicating in a way without judgment. And you cannot sell what you cannot show. So a couple of years ago, one of my 2 weddings was a really kind of beautiful, amazing, white-on-white wedding for a great couple, and it was a 22-month process of my life, and I was chatting with my husband about it, and he goes, you know, I think one of the issues is people don't really get what you do, like they don't understand it. So we hired a team to follow me for 4 days through load-in, setup, production, wedding, teardown, and we put it up, and it became the biggest closing tool that I had, where when people wanted to sit with me, I'd be like, okay, let me give you a little information about how I work. And I would play them this 8-minute video, which, don't worry, I'm not gonna make you suffer through. But I would play it for them. Every single client, every single time, booked me on the spot, based on that video. Because they were able to see me doing things, that I'm not precious, I'm not a princess, in these shoes, in a dress, I'm on the floor polishing because somebody in black shoes walked on a white high-gloss dance floor. But now my clients are like, I would really love if I too got a behind-the-scenes video. And so recently we had Cherish and Lindsay out, and they made me this. This is short. This wedding is super exciting because, first of all, it was a really quick turnaround. The couple didn't even contact me until October. And the bride called me up and she said, I know I want color because it's a Chinese wedding, but I don't want red. And she said, I'm trying to figure out a way to incorporate all the things that I love. And I said, well, what do you love? And she said, I love the couture shows. She said, I really love Kanye West and Drake and Hotline Bling. And I was like, Dior, Kanye West, Hotline Bling, got it. I wanted her ceremony to feel very much like a fashion show. And I saw that over in Europe, they're doing all of these like kind of tectonic plate walls. And I thought, oh, well, that would be really cool if we created a backdrop, almost like what the models come out and then they get to turn and walk down the runway. It's really amazing. She loved Crazy Rich Asians. We took inspiration from the movie so that it was very, very full on the side, and then it's going to be flanked by 2 14-foot golden trees that are just dripping in really beautiful orchids. You want me to talk about the fact that it's howling on my extraordinarily beautiful ceremony setup that I've been tracking weather for 4 days, and it said 0% precipitation. We're gonna need 80 of the nicest, bougiest black umbrellas you can find. It's gonna make for great photos and diffused lighting, which is gonna be lovely. And at the end of the day, we have a fantastic story. And if this is the worst thing that ever happens in your marriage, then guess what? You're good. Oh my God! For cocktails, we brought everything down. We brought in really big green trees, and it's much moodier of a space. And this is where you're gonna have your first cocktail. This is where you're gonna start kind of getting warmed up and mixing and mingling. And then when we pull back the drapes, you have this amazing grand reveal of like, oh my God. Instead of doing crystal chandeliers, we actually had a felt chandelier that has been laser cut and then wrapped around a rig. So we've got this gorgeous hexagon with these beautiful fabric poles, and they're anchoring the dance floor in the middle of the space. It's going to be delicious and golden. When you go to a Chinese banquet, you have to have a lazy Susan. So first thing, all of the tables had to be round, because it's very important that there's a level of equality to the tables and to the setup. That I like, that I can live with. Because she loves flowers so much, how do you put a really big, beautiful floral arrangement on something and then spin it and keep it safe? So we worked with a team that actually built us donut Lazy Susans, and our flowers are being strapped to the base, and then the Lazy Susan spins around them. When I presented the final design to the couple, she got teary and she said, I don't know how you did it. It's like you lived inside my brain and you put it in a place that made sense. We're never going to replicate this experience. This team in this room is never ever going to happen again. This day means more to me than anything else in this moment, and I will literally die in the middle of that room before I let something go wrong. Thank you, Cherish. Thank you, Lindsay. That is something that people can watch. That tells so much of the story in a way that nothing else could. And so when you're looking at things and when you're looking at storytelling, you really have to focus on why you're iconic. You have to remember that people don't buy things, they buy feelings. And that when you're speaking to everyone, you're not talking to anyone. You need to have an understanding of brand and client identification, avoid ego-driven narratives, and you need to look at client creation in a way that they want to consume it. And for today, you have been my clients, you have been my guests, and the reality is, 25 years ago when I discovered this industry, living on Long Island, saying, I think someday I'd really like to be a wedding planner, there was no resource for me. There was no place that I could go and that I could ask for any help. And I always said that if I ever find anything of value, if I can ever contribute and give back and be a source of information, education, or just light for somebody who loves this industry the same way that I do, I don't make anything. I don't cook anything. I don't make any flowers. I don't take any pictures. I don't serve any meals. But I am a maker of dreams come true. I am somebody who safeguards people's memories, and I do that based on the backs of the talents of the people in this room. And so for that, I thank you for always making me look good. I am thrilled and humbled to be here. My name is Andrea Eppolito, and I appreciate the fact that you spent this evening with me. So thank you very much. Apparently we're having a Q&A.
Are there any questions for Andrea?
Oh, good. I'm like, I did a really good job.
Maya Myers has a question.
Hi. I was going to tell you my name, but now you know it. Hi. Thank you for that. That was incredible. That was informative. So question, when you meet with clients, what do you do when there's a set of clients that they're all talk, and they're leading it? Do you ever just let go and let them tell the story and kind of go off script?
Yeah, I mean, I never ever have a script, because I think that a script boxes you in. I have framed statements, things that I want to get across, but my job is to tell their story. And so the more generous they are with information, the more notes that I can actually take. And a lot of times while they're talking, I'm taking notes, I'm kind of scribbling and sketching off to the side. I'm putting down questions, because my ability to tell their story rests on them trusting me. And people love the sound of their own voice. So the more that they talk, the more that they actually feel like I know them, and the more comfortable they feel. So I will literally let somebody talk for hours if they will keep going, and I will always ask, my favorite question is why? Like, why? Because I want to drill down to the absolute baseline core of who are they, why are they investing this money and this energy in this wedding, what do they want to get out of it, and then once, I don't say anything until I really feel like I know. And if I don't know the answer, I just shut my mouth. And then when they're done, or when I feel like they're done, I'll go, okay. And then I'll say, I just want to make sure I understand this, and I'll repeat it back to them. And once, I always want to get them to say, that's right. Yes is easy, like, yes, okay, yeah. I want to get them to say, that's right. If I can get them to say, that's right, 2 or 3 times, there's a great book. If you guys are readers, there's a book out there called Never Split the Difference. And it's by Chris Voss, and he was a hostage negotiator. And it's a fantastic book about how you get to a place of yes with somebody. How do you get somebody to do something? And if you can get somebody to say, that's right. I have a reading list, like I have my favorite books. I'll send you guys that too. With the links, you can audiobook them, you can buy them on Amazon. But that's right, once I get somebody to say that's right to me 3 times, psychologically, it puts them in a framework of agreement. And so this is what we're doing? Yeah, that's right. Okay, and sometimes I'll say to them, is that right? Because then they'll mirror it back. Once I get it 3 times, I know that now, in their head, they're in a place of yes. And so I'll keep asking questions until I get 3 that's rights, and that's when I hit them with, okay, this is how we move forward. Because now we're in tandem. And so that's the easiest way to do it. And then I always kind of close with why I exist. They're like, without them, I have nothing, there's no reason for me to be here. So that's my main point. Is there another one? Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, and big fan.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really interested about like what you said. You had like 19 weddings, and then it went back to 2.
Yeah.
How did you turn it around? What do you do? What do you tell people like us that have those problems, and how do you change it?
I think that if you are in this industry long enough, you will have a dip. If you're just in business for long enough, we all have times where it dips. And so the first thing that I did was I really went back and I said, okay, how did I break this? Like, how did I break my business? And I broke down all of the clients that I had for the last 2 years. And I looked at where I felt like I did my absolute best work, and I looked at where I struggled. Maybe not the work, but me as an artist and as a professional and as somebody who really cares about what they do, where did I not enjoy myself? And I used that as a framework to set up who my ideal client was. And then I went through every piece of marketing, collateral, social media, everything that I had, and I tested it against the ideal client. So if I had a picture like the pretty floating candles with nothing else, and I said, I don't ever want to do that again, I took it off. And so I ended up really scrapping about 80 to 85% of what had been built up. Because in my head, I thought like, people need to see that I've been around a long time. People need to see that I'm a real person, that I have a history, that I've done this. When there was no value in showing bad work, because I was telling a bad story, and I was telling a story to the wrong people. And so I got rid of everything, and I only focused on the stuff that I really, really wanted to do. I doubled down on my education, and I said from 2017 on, I said I'm going to commit to reading 2 to 3 business books a month. Now, I had nothing else to do because I had no clients, so that was like super easy, like I'm not working. So I was able to power through, but I read everything. I read war theory, I read marketing theory, I read interior design books because I felt like I know how I see the world. I know what I want it to look like. I know what I want it to feel like. Nobody was going to teach me how to be a wedding planner. I had no idea how to run a business. I had no idea about creating an ecosystem for the accounting. I didn't understand how to actually push out the content that I was creating, and so it was sitting there languishing. And so I really said, I'm going to learn everything that I can about business. And I took a lot of classes and I talked to a lot of people. And then I looked at the people that I was working with, the partners that I was inviting into my business, and I realized that all things being equal, we want to work with people that we like. All things not being equal, we still want to work with people that we like. But I noticed that as my business changed, as the things that I cared about kind of grew, I had partners that either were growing in a different direction or that were not growing at all. And those are really hard conversations to have when you become frienders, because like we work together and we're in the trenches and it's trial by fire, and so all of a sudden it's like you go out, you have a drink, next thing you know it's lunch, suddenly you're friends. And so how do you look at your friend and say, you're not getting it done anymore? And it's not that they were doing bad business, they were doing the exact business that they had always done. I'm the one who changed. And so, you know, then it's not you, it's me conversation. But I really had to kind of go through and say, this isn't about maintaining the friendship, this is about protecting the business. And that business is what puts my kids in karate, it's what takes me on vacation, it's what keeps me in Jimmy Choo's, and that is the thing that ultimately matters to me. My ability to get up every single day and be excited and engaged and to want to create something, to be willing to die in a room for people who I don't know and sometimes I don't like. I needed to create my own team of people who shared that vision, and I didn't have them. And that was absolutely dragging down the work because they were doing just good enough and I wanted more. And so those things, and really kind of doubling down and saying, okay, I'm going to create content, I'm going to talk to the right people, and I'm going to say over and over and over again, I am here to redefine what it means to get married in Las Vegas. Because 15 years ago, that meant Elvis and a drive-through chapel and some $1.99 shrimp cocktail. And today, it means a 24,000 square foot ballroom that we cover inside. And that was what I wanted to do. And so I just said it again and again and again because I was gonna make it true. And there were other people who wanted the same things. And so I was very intentional in making sure that I only put myself in places where I could do the kind of work that I loved, because I was never gonna be iconic, I was never gonna be good if I just kept doing work that I wasn't inspired by. I hope that's an actual answer. Is it? I don't know. Is that real? Okay.
All right, let's give a big round of